Good morning, students. Say your prayer. Thank you. நான் ஒரு நல்ல ஆசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். நான் ஒரு நல்ல ஆசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். நான் ஒரு நல்ல ஆசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். Okay, students, take your social science book. Take na. Come to page number 83. So today we will move to the next topic, Ottoman Empire, and the final topic, the feudalism. So today's class we will discuss about the Ottoman Empire. So how they established their empire and how they play an important role in international politics. So Ottoman Empire, so one of the important empire, so which ruled the regions between Asia and Europe. So their empire was partly in Asia and partly in Europe. So they ruled western part of Asia with the eastern part of Europe. So they have defeated some of the rulers in that region and established their empire strongly. So already there is another empire, Seljuk Turks and the Ottoman Turks. So after defeating the Seljuk Turks, so they established, the Ottomans established their empire strongly in that region. So till the 20th century, till the World War I, beginning of the World War I, so the year 1914, so they play an important role in the international politics. So we'll discuss about Ottoman Empire. Then feudalism. So feudalism means a social system that existed during the Middle Ages in Europe, in which people were given land and protection by a nobleman, and they had to fight for him in return. So this type of land concept was practicable in Europe in Middle Ages. So because during that time there is no industries. So all the countries, so the economy of all the countries depend upon the land only. So land was divided among the citizens. So the land, so the owner of the land almost in all country was the king. So the king divided the land to his lower officers. So what type of the concept that was existed in Europe in Middle Ages, we will discuss in this lesson. And finally we discuss about the power of church. So the church began to play an important role in politics during that time. So nowadays, so church and state were separated. So religion and state were separated in European countries. But in the Middle Ages, so church played a dominant role in state politics. So what type of role played by them? So we will see just an introduction about it. We will see them detailedly in 8th lesson. So we will discuss about the role of church in state politics detailed in 8th lesson. Then finally about the condition in India. So India in the corresponding period. So what happened in India during the Middle Ages. So just we go through a simple topic. So this is the topic we are going to discuss in this class. So recall what we discussed in our previous class. In our previous class we discussed about Islam and the rise of Islamic empires. So Prophet Muhammad, so he only established Islam. So before the arrival of Islam, so the people of the Arabs, so the Arab people, so they were divided into warring state. But the Islam, so the religion Islam united them. So it preached equality and brotherhood. So it attracted people. So many Arab people so began to converted into Islam. So the holy city of Islam was Mecca and Medina. So we have discussed about that also. Then after Prophet Muhammad, he was succeeded by Abu Bakr and Umar. So they have considered themselves as Caliph. So Caliph means religious leader, religious and temporary leader. So they laid the foundation for the Islamic empire. So they defeated the Eastern Roman Empire and the Sassanid king of Persia. So after defeating them, so they established their superiority. So they established their power, authority in that region, in Persia and also in the Eastern Roman Empire. So while invading Eastern Roman Empire, so they were supported by the people of Egypt. So because Egypt people were suffered a lot in the hands of Roman Empire. Then after defeating the Eastern Roman Empire, so the Arabs, so they went far as possible. So they went even the northern part of Africa. So they occupied the northern part of Africa, and they invaded Spain also. So nearly for more than hundreds of years, Spain was under the control of Arabs. Then came the Umayyad dynasty. So the Umayyad. So Umayyad means, so the caliphs belonging to the branch of Muhammad family is known as Umayyad. Then so they ruled for about 100 years. Then they were succeeded by the Abbasid. So first Umayyad, then Abbasid. So in the meantime, so Islam was divided into two sects, so Sunni and Shia sect. So we have discussed that also. Then in the rule of Abbasid, so the capital city was changed from Damascus to Baghdad. So Baghdad, which was known as the city of Arabian Nights. So we have discussed this also. Then Arabs scholarly pursuits. So Arab people, so apart from conquering the other countries, they have interest in scholars also. So the Abbasid Caliph, so they did not attempt to conquer New Land, but they consolidated the empire. So they only make the empire very strong. So they had the Arabs had a scientific spirit of inquiry. So they had good contact with India. So many students from Arabia came to Takshila to learn medical education. In the field of medicine and surgery, Arab physicians and surgeons earned a good reputation. So we have discussed this also. And the disintegration of Arab Empire and the rise of Seljuk Turks. So when the empire began to expand, the role of Caliph became more powerless. So the role of Caliph became more powerless. So the Seljuk Turks, so they invade Baghdad and take over the control of Baghdad. So the Seljuk Turks, so now they became Muslims. So they succeeded in taking the possession of Baghdad. So we have discussed this also. Then finally they captured Constantinople. So after capturing Constantinople, so they possess a great challenge to the European powers. They also captured the city of Jerusalem. So this led to the war between the Islams and the Christians. So the Christians, they wanted to recover their holy place, Jerusalem. So for that they declared a war. So that is called as Crusades. In that Crusades, so that result in the fall of Seljuk Turks. So because of the continuous attack of the Christians in order to recover their holy city Jerusalem, so it caused the fall of Seljuk Turks. Then apart from that, so the Mongol invasion, so from the east, it also caused a deadline to the Seljuk Turks. Then we discussed about the impact of Crusades and also the notable Mongol king Genghis Khan. So the Mongols under Genghis Khan attacked the Seljuk Turks also. It also paved the way for the fall of the Seljuk Turks. So apart from Crusades, so the Mongol invasion also paved the fall of Seljuk Turks. So this only we have discussed in our previous class. Okay, va? So Ottoman Empire, so one of the important empire. So remember this. When the Mongols advanced across Asia, so Mongols, so they were from Central Asia, so almost lie between east of Asia, so between Russia and China. So the Mongols advanced across Asia. So already so while discussing about the dynasties in China, we know they defeated the Chinese rulers and established their power in China. So after defeating China and some other countries, so they came across Asia. So when the Mongols advanced across Asia, Ottoman Turks, so they were different from Seljuk Turks. So already we have discussed now Ottoman Turks and Seljuk Turks. So when the Mongols advanced across Asia, Ottoman Turks fled and took asylum. So asylum means so protection that a government gives to a people who left their country. So asylum. So when the Mongols advanced across Asia, Ottoman Turks so fled and they took asylum. So asylum means so protection that a government gives to the people who left their country, usually because they were in danger for political reason. So asylum means so protection that was given by a government to a people so who left their country. So the Ottoman Turks so fled away. So because the Mongols had attacked them. So in order to escape from that attack, so Ottoman Turks fled away from their own place and took asylum under Seljuks in Western Asia. But when the Seljuk Turks weakened, the Ottomans extended their power. So the Seljuk Turks gave asylum to Ottoman Turks. When the Seljuk Turks became weak, the Ottomans extend their power. So they crossed over to Europe and occupied Bulgaria and Serbia. So these were the Eastern European countries. So the Ottoman Turks crossed over to Europe and occupied Bulgaria and Serbia and made Adrianople their capital. So they crossed to Europe and occupied Bulgaria and Serbia and made Adrianople their capital. So instead of directly attacking Constantinople, they surrounded it and were biding their time. So instead of directly attacking Constantinople, directly, so just they surround around the city and they were waiting for their time. So the conquest of Constantinople in 1453 AD by Muhammad II so helped establish Ottoman supremacy in the Balkans, Black Sea and the Middle East. So the conquest of Constantinople in 1453. So the Ottomans, already. So we have discussed this thing in many times. So in our previous classes. So the conquest of Constantinople in 1453 AD by Muhammad II. So who conquered Constantinople in 1453 means it was Ottoman Turks under Muhammad II. So it helped the Ottomans to establish their supremacy in the Balkan region. So Balkan means it includes the countries so which are around Mediterranean Sea and Black Sea. So Balkan, so countries, so these are the countries which lies between Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. So just that is just they located to the west of Constantinople. Okay, so Constantinople now it was called as Istanbul. Okay, so when the Mongols advanced across Europe, Asia, Ottoman Turks, so they were different from Seljuk Turks, fled and took asylum under the Seljuks in Western Asia. But when the Seljuk Turks weakened, the Ottomans extended their power. So they crossed over to Europe and occupied Bulgaria and Serbia and made Adrianople their capital. So instead of directly attacking Constantinople, they surrounded it and they were biding their time. So they were waiting and they were hiding for their time. The conquest of Constantinople in 1453 AD by Muhammad II helped establish Ottoman supremacy in the Balkans, Black Sea and the Middle East. So for some time, so the Ottomans were strong. So for some time, so after capturing the Constantinople, so they became very strong. So already they have captured Bulgaria and Serbia. And they captured Constantinople also. So they were very strong. And the Christian Europe was scared of them. So the Christian Europe was so feared of them. So the Christians in the Europe, so they feared about the Ottoman Empire because the Ottomans, so they were the followers of Islam religion. So after conquering Egypt, they assumed the title of Caliph. So after conquering Egypt, so the Ottoman Empire rulers assumed the title of Caliph. So Caliph means religious leader of Islam. So they became a major player in the international power politics of the day. So they became a major player in the international power politics of the day. So though they were weakened during the 19th century, so it formally ended only with the World War I. So though the empire became weak during 19th century itself, so the empire so formally came to an end after World War I. So World War I, you will learn about World War I and World War II in your 10th standard. Okay, so though weakened during the 19th century, so the Ottoman Empire formally ended only with World War I. Next, feudalism. So what is meant by feudalism? A social system that existed during the Middle Ages in Europe. So a type of system, a social system that existed during the Middle Ages in Europe, in which people were given land. So in this type of social system, so the people in Europe were given land and protection by a nobleman. And protection by a nobleman, and they had to fight for him in return. So social system that existed during the Middle Ages in Europe, in which people were given land and protection by a nobleman, and they had to fight for him in return. So people have get the land from the nobleman, and they have to fight for the nobleman in return. So state. So first state means the rulers. So the government. So despite the hold of powerful religion such as Christianity and Islam, the economic life of people was governed by the feudal relations. Yeah, so despite the hold of powerful religions, so like Christianity and Islam, yeah, in the Middle Ages, so Christianity and Islam, so they were the powerful religions in West Asia and Europe. Yeah. So despite the hold of powerful religions such as Christianity and Islam, the economic life of people was governed by the feudal relations. Okay, ma? So what is that feudal relations? So the king, so he is the head. So he is the head of the feudal regime. So the king is considered to be the head of the feudal regime. So the king, so he is considered as the representative of God on earth. So king, he is considered as the representative of God on earth, and he was at the head of the feudal concept. Immediately after him, so below him was the great nobles, so who were known as dukes, counts and earls. So the king, so he is the head of the feudal regime. So below him was the great nobles, so who were called as, so who were known as in different names, so like dukes, counts and earls. So the relationship was one of a vassal. So the relationship between them was one of a vassal. So vassal means a man in the Middle Ages, so who promised to fight for and be loyal to a king or other powerful owner of land in return for being given land to live in. So vassal means a man in the Middle Ages who promised to fight for the king. So because the king gave land to him. So the relationship was one of a vassal. So that is between the king and the noble. So the king gave land to the noble. So the noble, so he was a vassal. So the nobles in turn had many vassals. So the nobles in turn had vassals of their own, dividing and distributing their fief. So fief means an area of land. So the nobles in turn had vassals of their own. So they also had their vassals. So the nobles were vassals of the king. And in turn, the nobles also had vassals, so who divide and distribute their fief, that is their land, to lesser nobles who were called as viscount or barons. So the nobles in turn so had vassals of their own, dividing and distributing their fief to lesser nobles called as viscounts or barons. So last in this order were the knights whose fiefs could not be divided. So below the viscounts or barons were the knights. So below them the land was not divided. At the bottom level was the villeins. So villeins means a poor man who had to work for a rich man in return for a small piece of land to grow food on. So villeins means a poor man who had to work for a rich man. That is villeins. So they had to work for the knights. So they work for the knights. In return, they get a small piece of land to grow food. So the villains, so they didn't have any land. So just they were provided a small area of land by the knights just for cultivating food. Okay, so at the bottom were the villains and serf. So villains, a poor man, already we see. So serf, it is also the poor man. So these names are same only. The meaning are same only. At the bottom level were the villains or serfs, and they were called as slaves. So the king, so support to be the representative of God on earth, was at the head of the feudal regime. Immediately after him were the great nobles who were called as dukes, counts and earls. So the relationship was one of a vassal. So vassal, so a man in the Middle Ages who promised to fight for and be loyal to a king in return for being given land to live in. Then the nobles in turn had their own vassals, dividing and distributing their land to lesser nobles, so called as viscounts or barons. So below them was the knights, so whose fiefs could not be divided. So below them were knights, and after that the land was not divided. So at the bottom level were the villains or serfs, and they were called as slaves. So in the feudal system, which is centered around vassalage, there was no idea of equality or freedom. So in feudal system, which is centered around the vassalage, around the land, there was no idea of equality or freedom. There were only rights and obligations. So there were only rights and obligations. Obligations means a state of being forced to do something because it is your duty or because of law, etc. So obligation means, so you are forced to do something because it is your duty. So the bishops the abbots, and the cardinals. So the priest next to the pope, cardinals, so bishop, religious get in the district levels. Yeah. So in the religion side, so the bishops, abbots, and cardinals. So they were next to the priest. Yeah. So next to the pope was cardinals. Yeah. So bishops, so religious get in the district level. Abbots, so chief among the Christian priests, and the church came under this socio-political structure. Yeah. So apart from the land, so religion, it also have some divisions. Yeah. So they have, so the bishops, abbots, and the cardinals. Yeah. So the priest was next to pope. Yeah. So cardinals, then bishops. So they were religious get in the district level. Yeah. Then abbots, chief among the Christian priests, and the church came under this socio-political structure. Yeah. The nobility and the clergy did not do any physical work. Yeah. So the nobility and the clergy. So clergy means so priest of a religion. Yeah. So they do not do any physical work. Yeah. So the burden of producing the food and other necessities of life fell on the peasants and the artisans. Yeah. So the noble persons and the clergy. Yeah. So that is the priest. Yeah. So they do not do any physical work. Yeah. So the burden of producing food and the necessities of all the people so fell on the peasants and the artisans. Next, church. So church, so they played an important role in so state politics of the time. Yeah. So new elements were included in Christian theology. So theology means so concept of religion and belief. Yeah. So study of religious or set of religious belief. So that is called as theology. Yeah. So new things. Yeah. So new rules were included in Christian theology. Yeah. So they were the theory of priesthood and the theory of sacraments. Yeah. So they were the theory of priesthood and the theory of sacraments. So sacrament means an important religious ceremony in Christianity. So priesthood is related with the priest. Yeah. So these two elements increased the power of the clergy. So these two elements increased the power of the clergy. So power of the clergy, yeah, the priest of a religion. Yeah. So new elements were included in Christian theology. So they were the theory of priesthood and the theory of sacraments. Yeah. So these two elements increased the power of the clergy. So the church enjoyed two powers, that is excommunication and interdict. So excommunication means so depriving a person of all the privileges of a Christian. So he was denied the right to sacraments in church. So excommunication means so depriving a person of all the special rights of the all the privileges. So privileges means special rights or special thing which was given to them in Christianity. Yeah. He was denied the right to sacraments in church. Yeah. His or her body could not be buried in the consecrated ground. Yeah. So his or her body. Yeah. If the person was excommunicated means then his or her body could not be buried in the consecrated ground. Okay, ma'am. So excommunicate. So to punish somebody officially, stating that they cannot be no longer be a member of a church. Yeah. So excommunicate means to punish somebody officially by the church, stating that they can no longer be a member of a church. Yeah. So after their death, so they could not be buried in the consecrated ground. Yeah. Then interdict. So it was to deny benefits of religion to a ruler's subject. So it was to deny benefits of religion to a ruler's subject, intended to kindle their resentment against him. Yes, intended to kindle their resentment against him. Yes, so interdict means an order banning somebody from taking part in church service, etc. So excommunicate means to punish somebody officially, stating that they no longer be a member of your church. Yeah, so interdict means an order banning somebody from taking part in church service. So they were banned to take part in church service. Yeah, so both this was used by the priest, so the church authority, to threaten the people. Yeah, so in the name of the religion, so they threaten the people, so by imposing such excommunication and interdict. Okay, va? So the growth of the church in the later Middle Ages was accompanied by the rise of ambitious political leaders. Yeah, so apart from the growth of church in the later Middle Ages, so there was some ambitious political leaders. Yeah. See, in the conflict between the German Emperor Henry IV and the Pope Gregory VII, Pope, by means of interdict, succeeded in making the emperor to abdicate the throne. Yeah. So the growth of church in the later Middle Ages was accompanied by the rise of ambitious political leaders. Yeah. In the conflict, so in the problem between the German Emperor Henry IV, so German Emperor was Henry IV that time, and Pope. So Pope, he was the head of the church. Yeah, so he was the religious head of the Christians. Yeah, and Pope Gregory VII, Pope by means of interdict, so succeeded. So Pope, by using his power of interdict, succeeded in making the emperor to abdicate the throne. Yeah, so succeeded in making the emperor to lift his throne. Yeah, then by means of interdict, so by using the same interdict, Pope Innocent III. Yeah, so the name of the Pope was Innocent III. Yeah, he forced the King John to recognize England and Ireland as fiefs of the papacy. So fief, yeah, so like a land system. So already in feudalism we have discussed now, fief, an area of land. Yeah, so by means of interdict, Pope Innocent III forced the England King John to recognize England and Ireland as a fief to papacy. Fief of the papacy means, so under the England and Ireland was the land, area of land under the Pope, under the church. Yeah, so many pious Christians now began to resent Pope's intrusion into state affairs. Yeah, so many Christians, yeah, so they now began to oppose. So resentment means so oppose. Yeah, so they opposed the Pope's, yeah, so Pope's intrusion in state affairs. Okay, va? So India in the corresponding age. So what are the important events so that took place in India so during the Middle Ages? Yeah. So first the Huns. So around the time when Europe fragmented into multiple small Germanic kingdoms after the collapse of Roman Empire, the Huns, that is white, a fierce and warlike people, came from Central Asia, invaded Northeast Asia. Yeah, so around the time when Europe was divided into multiple small kingdoms. Yeah, so small Germanic kingdom means, so most of the rulers were belong to Germany. Yeah, so small Germanic kingdoms. After the collapse of Roman Empire, the Huns, that is the white, yeah, so they were belongs to white race. Yeah, a fierce and warlike people from Central Asia invaded northeast of India. So they invaded northeast of India. So though they were repulsed by, so they were stopped by Skandagupta, they entered India after his death. So the Huns, so initially they were repulsed by Skandagupta, but after his death they entered into India and settled all over central India. So Doramana and Mihirakula were the two well-known Hun rulers in India. So Doramana and Mihirakula, so they were the two well-known Hun rulers in India. So they persecuted Buddhists and burned all the monasteries. So they persecuted. So they didn't like Buddhism. So they persecuted Buddhists. Persecute means to treat somebody in a cruel way. So they treated the Buddhists in cruel way, and they had burnt all the monasteries. So Yasodharman of Malwa is credited to have ended the rule of Huns in India around 528 AD. So Yasodharman of Malwa, so he is from Malwa region. He is credited to have ended the rule of Huns in India around 528 AD. So India in the corresponding period, around the time when Europe was fragmented, was divided into, splitted into multiple small Germanic kingdoms after the collapse of Roman Empire, the Huns, a fierce and a warlike people, so the brave people, so came from Central Asia, they invaded northeast of India. So though they were repulsed by Skandagupta, they entered India after his death and they settled all over central India. So Doramana and Mihirakula were the two well-known Hun rulers in India. So they persecuted Buddhist. So they treated Buddhist in a cruel way and burnt all the monasteries. So Yasodharman of Malwa is credited to have ended the rule of Huns in India around 528 AD. In South India, so the Chalukya kingdom, so the Chalukyas of Badami or Vadabi. So what was their relationship with Persia? So the Chalukya kingdom existed contemporaneously. So contemporaneously means living in the same period. So the Chalukya kingdom existed during the rule of Sassanid dynasty in Persia. So Sassanid dynasty, so the empire which was defeated by the Arab. So during their conquest of other regions to spread Islam, they first defeated the Sassanid dynasty of Persia. So the Chalukya kingdom existed contemporaneously with the rule of Sassanid dynasty in Persia. So Khusrau II, so the last great king of Sassanid dynasty, who had a close relationship with the Tang dynasty in China, and the Chalukya ruler Pulikesin to exchanged ambassadors. So Khusro to see the last great king of Sassanid dynasty. So he had a close relationship with the Tang dynasty in China and the Chalukya ruler Pulikesin too. So they exchanged ambassadors. So the Chalukya king compressed the Maharashtra country with Badami as capital. So the Chalukya kingdom compressed the state of Maharashtra with Badami as capital. Yuan Shang, so he speaks highly of their courage. So Yuan Shang so speaks the courage of the Chalukyas. According to him, so the Chalukyas, so they were warlike. So they are warlike and proud-spirited. So they are warlike and proud-spirited and grateful for favors. So they were attracted. So they were grateful for favors and revengeful for wrongs. So and they were revengeful for wrongs. So according to Yuan Shang, so the Chalukyas, so they are warlike. So they like the battlefield. So they like the wars. And they were proud-spirited and grateful for favors and revengeful for the wrongs. Okay, students. So in this lesson, we discussed about the Middle Ages. So the Middle Ages period is between 476 AD, that is the fall of Roman Empire to and the capture of Constantinople in the year 1453 is called as the Middle Ages. So in that, first we discussed about the empires in China, that is Tang, Sung and Yuan dynasty and Ming Empire. Then we discussed about the Japan. So the rulers in Japan. So the evolution of Japanese society under the Fujiwara family and the Kamakura shogunate. Then we discussed about the birth of Islam. So the background of the birth of Islam, and we acquired knowledge about the Arab and Ottoman Empire and their contribution to spread of Islamic culture. So after the death of Prophet Muhammad, so Islam began to spread in other regions. So from Arabia, it spread to other regions of the world, so especially in West Asia and east of Europe. So the important region of the world. Then we discussed about the characteristics of feudalism in the Middle Ages. So feudalism, so the type of land, so land concept, so which was practiced in medieval Europe. So we have discussed that. In that, the king was the head, the next to king was the great nobles, then before the great nobles it was the lesser nobles called as viscounts and barons, and below him, below the lesser nobles were the knights. So up to them the land was divided. So that was called as, that concept was called as vassal. Below that the land was not further divided. So the land was, below level was, it was knights. Then at the bottom level were the villains or sirs who were called as slaves. Then we discussed about the church, so the role of church. So how they began to control the state affairs. So later it was not liked by the Christians also. So they hate the church who are controlling, who are in introducing, who are unnecessarily invading in state affairs, who are unnecessarily introducing in them into state affairs. We have discussed this also. Then finally about India in the corresponding period, that is the Huns. So the Huns, they were from Central Asia, invaded Northeast Asia after the death of Skandagupta and established their role in Central India. Then we discussed about the Chalukyas. So during the last great king of Sassanid dynasty, Khusro, to the Chalukya ruler Pulikesin was in India. So they exchanged the ambassadors. So the Chalukya kingdom compressed the Maharashtra country with the Badami as their capital. So we have discussed these things in our today's class. Okay, ma? So if you have any doubt in this lesson, so please contact me. Okay, ma? Take your book. So take page number 83. Your textbook reading. So read that feudalism heading, in that read state. Then homework. So take page number 86. Fifth kilometer, third question, fourth question. How was feudalism organized in the Middle Ages? So take page number 83. So in that feudalism state, the second paragraph. So the king, so next strike out the supposed to represent on God on earth. Yeah. So this point should be written as the king was at the head of the feudal regime. So after him, immediately after him were the great nobles known as dukes, counts, earls. The next point, the nobles in turn had vassals of their own, dividing and distributing their fief to lesser nobles called viscounts or barons. So last in this order were the knights. Yeah. Then last point, at the bottom were the villains or serfs. So this is the answer for third question. Then fourth, write about the two instruments used by medieval pope to assert his authority. So take page number 84. So see the heading church. In that heading, the first paragraph. So new elements were included in Christian theology. They were the theory of priesthood and the theory of sacraments. So these two elements increased the power of the clergy. This is the answer for fourth question. Yeah. So write it in your homework note and read it well. So thank you. Have a nice day.